Welcome to Next in Tech, an S&P Global Market Intelligence podcast where the world of emerging tech lives. I'm your host, Eric Hanselman, Chief Analyst for Technology, Media, and Telecom at S&P Global Market Intelligence. And today, we're going to be discussing the journey to cloud native with my guest, Senior Analyst Carl Lehmann. Carl, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, Eric. Glad to be here.
Well, it's great to have you on. I wanted to talk about one of the things that I think we've been kicking around in some of the episodes William Fellows and Gina Telsek were on around KubeCon, and we've gotten down the road around cloud native discussions and had sort of launched off into a lot of the high level concepts around this. But one of the things I want to do is actually talk about what are the foundations that really underpin this and really dig into the meat of what some of these different aspects are and what enterprises are doing in this journey from what has been the way in which we've built infrastructure, developed applications, and all these capabilities seemingly forever, and some of the changes that are taking place. But I guess I'd like to start with maybe looking into some background on, I think one of the things, term we kick around a lot is DevOps. We were talking with William and Gene about platform engineering. There's also SRE, reliability engineering. You can give us some background in terms of where these all fit and really what this environment is about and what the changes are that are in play.
Sure. So we've been talking to a lot of enterprises and IT vendors about the benefits and challenges of cloud native computing, cloud native application development, and how it can bring value and competitive advantage to anyone involved. It began years ago when we needed to do things better, cheaper, and faster during the Great Recession. And actually, even before that, when the development teams and IT shops and the operation teams and the IT shops realized that they needed to do a better job working together. So the whole concept of DevOps came into being, where you push the organizations and the processes together a little bit so that you can turn code out faster. You can update your applications quicker, more features, and differentiate yourself in the market with new capabilities that perhaps your rivals didn't have. So DevOps became
agility and all sorts of good things, right?
Right.
Well, but I guess it's the thing I wanted to focus on is that I think that you identified there, it's that silo busting piece. DevOps is taking development teams that are actually developing the code and the operations teams that actually have to run the code they develop, smushing them together so that they're more tightly integrated. But even that can be a pretty big change, right?
So that was a big change, but it was successful in many enterprises. But it also created new challenges. So for example, if you're pushing code faster into production, your infrastructure's got to be ready for that. So a new discipline emerged to help assure that infrastructure was available and scalable. So site reliability engineering came into our vernacular. And it had a unique set of skill sets and developed and crafted new types of tools to make certain that the compute storage network and all the other supporting infrastructure was in place to support, rapid code deployment. And so this whole concept of site reliability engineering or SRE has been accelerating within enterprise IT organizations. But that also created another issue. And that issue was that developers needed to take more full advantage of cloud native computing and all the tools that are spawning from it. So platform engineering became a discipline whereby an IT organization would create a framework to assemble a range of different tools needed by developers so that they can access them as a self-service. They were already essentially pre-configured and available and usable, and it would help to make the productivity of the developer or improve the productivity of the developer. So we've got these three things now: DevOps, site reliability engineering for infrastructure, and platform engineering for an integrated tool chain, all kind of interoperating. So what we're seeing now is companies are looking at these three disciplines as a unified approach to cloud native application development. And if you think of them as within a Venn diagram, they overlap and operate with one another. DevOps for rapid code deployment, site reliability engineering for rapid infrastructure deployment and scalability, and platform engineering for self-service tool chains for developers so that they have the things that they need to create new apps and differentiate themselves and improve their IT operations.
Yeah, platform engineering was one of those things that was front and center at KubeCon. And there is also that great benefit. If you look at certainly the whole cloud native tooling environment, you look at the project charts that Cloud Native Computing Foundation and even the Linux Foundation put together, and you get these crazy charts that are full of a zillion projects doing lots of different things. And platform engineering was hopefully giving people the ability to at least get their hands around some of that and constrain it. William and Gene and I got into a little bit of a discussion around how do you narrow the universe of possibilities, and maybe platform engineering is the way to
Well,
do
if
that.
you look at the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, how many projects do they have? 1,000 more? And they're organized into a dozen or several dozen different categories. So the challenge for enterprise then become, well, how do I pick the right tool for what I'm trying to do? And how to make them interoperate with one another? And that's the hard part. A lot of these tools are very useful and productive, but they can become counterproductive if you have too many tools used at once and they don't necessarily interoperate with other tools that are needed for the task at hand, whether it's delivering an application to production or whether it's bringing up new infrastructure to support new applications. So what we're starting to see now is our IT vendors are beginning to create these frameworks, particularly for platform engineering, frameworks to plug and play, if you will, the various technologies that are being spawned and put into use via the Cloud Native Computing Foundation so that they have some semblance of communications and interoperability among each other. And, examples of some of the vendors that are doing that are, Red Hat with OpenShift and VMware with Tanzu and Graphe with its Kubernetes automation platform and SUSE with Rancher, and even smaller venture-backed firms that are creating frameworks like NetHopper, for example. All of them are creating these tool chains or tool frameworks to create more a unified, interoperable approach to site reliability engineering for infrastructure deployment and scalability, and for platform engineering for tool chain interoperability.
So trying to at least bound the universe of possibilities that exist out there. But you talked about some of the benefits of getting to greater agility. There's relatively sort of high level benefits. What we're seeing is in terms of what's actually translating into the practical benefits for enterprises.
Well, the practical benefits are kind of coming from another layer of abstraction that all of these architectures, platform engineering and site reliability engineering, are embracing. And what they're embracing, basically, in my view, that's a high priority, is various degrees of automation. IT organizations have always been resource constrained, but more so today because there's just so many technologies available, and there's the migration to cloud native computing and application development, and the productive use of the tools being generated through the Cloud Native Computing Foundation and other vendor attributes has accelerated complexity, and it requires IT organizations to master even more skills, and that's really hard to do. So the way they're doing it is through automation, and automation is enabled in a variety of different ways. A lot of tools available today have some form of workflow engine that, when it's in use and being productive, the tool can capture a process and create it as a repeatable asset so that other members within an IT organization can use that. So the benefits, other than the obvious for DevOps, platform engineering, and site reliability engineering, is the quality and capabilities they have to automate IT processes, capture them in some form of repository, and make them discoverable for use by other IT professionals or even business professionals with technical skills, so that these platforms, these tools, these engineering efforts create what basically can be considered an IT force multiplier. Automation captures skills and makes them repeatable and can be distributed across the organization. So the degree to which an IT organization, an enterprise at large, improves its automation skills using these tools and can offer considerable advantage. It makes better use of the IT organization, and it can potentially expose IT skills to more technically oriented business professionals who have the capacity to do that. And there's a trend in that as well. Many enterprises are trying to create as many self-services as they can for using their IT assets or using their business processes or improving their business processes. So kind of an automation framework or an automation mindset is needed and to really fully benefit from the capabilities of these platforms and technology.
Yeah, I mean, automation gives you repeatability, consistency. It means that whatever you're delivering winds up being, becoming a regularized process. It's one of those things, though, that traditionally enterprises have been challenged to build out automation infrastructure, and whether or not that's concerns about the amount they have to invest in automation in order to get it functional, constraints and the environments, what they provide. And there always are those factions within an organization that want to do it their way, and we want to be able to be special. There are a lot of challenges that your average enterprise faces in getting here. I mean, I just look at all the data we've got about the extent to which automation gets integrated in the average enterprise. And I, with my security hat on, the woefully behind the curve, networking, it's always been something where it's been tough to get fully automated, but it seems like we're making progress, but there's still some challenges that organizations have to overcome. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the trying to organize complexity, and going back to what I said a bit earlier, the goal would be for your DevOps journey, your site reliability engineering journey, your platform engineering journey, is to create a technology framework that can potentially plug and play the various technologies that you need for application development, infrastructure provisioning, ongoing observability, monitoring and maintenance, error correction, debugging, et cetera. The list goes on. And that's why some of the technologies and the vendors I mentioned earlier are so important to help an IT organization kind of craft that framework within different capabilities can be potentially like plug and play. We've got a long way to go for that just yet, but the effort is underway to move in that direction. And when that happens,
it's not something you can buy off the shelf today, right? I mean,
well, you can get a starter kit. Let's just
some
say
assembly required.
Right. You can get starter kits, which have frameworks for the most popular tools in both the disciplines, site reliability engineering and platform engineering. So there's technology out there that represents a good start, but there's a long way to go. So it's up to the IT organization to have really good managerial skills, organizational skills, and team collaboration skills so that these tools can be used productively and interoperable together.
Easy for you to say.
But
Carl, it sounds like what you're saying is it's not all about the technology. You're getting back to the people stuff. It all comes down to the people, right?
Well, yeah. And so that's, the teams need to work together, and the collaboration, I guess, culture within an IT organization really needs to be, the ante needs to be upped in that department.
Yeah. It seems like one of those things that when it comes down to it, we are managing organizations that are made up of people. And a big part of this is helping to provide pathways to be able to build these processes. But a lot of this still gets down to that aspect of we're changing organizational culture. And we've got to make some cultural changes for a bunch of these to really be effective.
No argument there. Another thing, though, that I think we have to mention is the role of generative AI in all of this.
Oh, now you've said it. Yes, indeed. We, of course, I think every episode requires at least some amount of generative AI, but I absolutely take your point. This is something that generative AI is, like many things, it's a forcing function, and it's a forcing function here too, right?
Yeah. So when you look at the complexity that IT organizations face, especially with all the tools coming out of the cloud native world, a lot of them are very productive, et cetera. And I mentioned that automation is a way to create an IT force multiplier. But automation takes a little bit of work, and it requires good development skills for professional developers to examine how things are done, codify them into an automated process, and then make it available for the rest of the IT organization and even business professionals when appropriate. But so what we're starting to see, though, is the automation capabilities within these vendors and unique, dedicated automation platform vendors are beginning to add generative AI capabilities and other AI capabilities they've had for a long time to accelerate and improve the quality, the automation development process. Gen AI is being used really, everyone knows that IT vendors are pursuing co-pilots and autopilots of various types. But when you add that capability to assist in an automation design, you really speed up the effort. Now, there's questions of quality that still need to be raised, but nevertheless,
are we getting beyond the clippy? I see you're building a website.
So the speed of automation can be accelerated using Gen AI, and also to the discovery process. How to evaluate the execution of automated processes once they're in play to make certain that they're productive and efficient and timely and speedy. AI of various types can play a valuable role of that. And the next step, the way Gen AI is being used, is to guide either the developer or the user of a process on how to execute it properly and accurately. And so it's being used in two ways: to create process automations and also to help the stakeholders accurately and reliably execute process automations. And that's true not just for IT processes, for business processes in general. So, we're seeing, I cover a lot of the automation technology platforms, and virtually every vendor in the space is building out an AI suite of capabilities, not the least of which is generative AI, to help improve developer productivity and speed and the accuracy of the execution of a process once it's automated using these tools. So there's a lot of promise in coming from AI technologies across the board to really help control complexity and improve the capabilities of all the tools used in DevOps, in site reliability engineering, and platform engineering, and even in business process automation and execution in general.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen Nick Patience has been on, and Alex Johnson talking about tools for coding to help the development process, basically
Right.
using generative tools to be able to help speed code development, code creation. And I think it gets to the 2 points that you made really at the outset, which is, again, one of those things that technology is always really good at, which is giving you the ability to raise the level of abstraction with which you're working with, whatever the particular problem happens to be, and to be able to scale that up. Because, again, I think the things you're pointing out at the outset, what is it that organizations are trying to do? They're trying to get faster, to be able to operate at greater scale. And it sounds like we're getting there. And maybe in the automation side, some things that actually help with the development of the automation itself.
Right. So I guess, my final message to listeners of this podcast would be, consider DevOps, site reliability engineering, and platform engineering as unique disciplines, but interoperate in a way similar to, the way a Venn diagram, if you picture a Venn diagram in your mind's eye, how these interoperate and overlap, that would be the approach. And the goal here is to, improve the collaboration of the teams in each one of those disciplines. And that's a cultural thing. And then beyond that is to kind of create frameworks, if possible. And it is possible because vendors are responding very quickly to enable companies to plug and play the various emerging and evolving technologies that are coming as part of cloud native computing architecture. And then kind of layering a discipline and capability of automation to capture IT skills so that they become assets that can be distributed and used by others to make the IT organization, or give the IT organization a force multiplier.
Well, yeah, and you raise a whole set of really interesting points about really what enterprises should be thinking about. It's that the thing I think that's really interesting is the idea of the capture piece and being able to take those things that they're doing today and codify it in automation and make it repeatable and then open it up to a broader set of capabilities. I mean, one of the other things you'd mentioned was skilled, more skilled general business use, getting into the low code and no code kind of capabilities. It seems like these places where we can start to do some of that process capture, some of that knowledge capture at lower level capabilities starts to pave the way to maybe open some of the doors to that. Is that am I heading in a useful direction there?
Oh, yeah. So when you look at the business user, there's a class of business user that I call a business technologist. They're very familiar with the business that they are responsible for, and they're also very savvy when it comes to technology. There's a growing number of those types of people in enterprises, and I believe them to be very valuable because they can immediately assist the IT organization in productively applying technology to solve problems because they're well aware of the problems. And they're being armed, these business technologists and other tech-savvy folks, but what I'm calling business technologists, are now also being armed with a new type of technology. In the past few years, process discovery technologies have emerged to help companies really understand how they do things. Essentially, there's a couple of types of software that gets loaded into either an enterprise system or the device of a user, and it examines behavior, how the process executes in real time and in reality, in and across applications, and how the users behave when using applications to do their job. So this technology, these process and task mining technologies, capture real-time data that then can be used to examine how the IT processes run, to examine how business processes run, to examine how the workforce behaves, and uses AI and other technologies to improve upon the design, eliminate bottlenecks, improve efficiency, speed things along, and then which can then be used to automate and make that repeatable. So these technologies are mostly being used in the business side of the world to examine, procure to pay process, order to cash processes, and all the wonderful business processes we need to run our operations, run our businesses. But they also can be used in the IT organizations to understand how they do provisioning, how they do, observe, how they do monitoring, control, observability, ticketing,
any kind of process capability, whether or not that's requisitioning new services. And to your point, it's a process, and you can capture it, codify it, and hopefully regularize it to make it run the business.
Right. And these tools now can be put in the hands of what I'm referring to as business technologists, but they, even non-technically oriented people can benefit from the use of these tools, and then give this to the IT organization and say, hey, look what we discovered. This needs to be fixed. And off we go with our platform engineering framework that we put in place to give the developers the tools that they need to create the automation that was discovered and improved upon through these process discovery technologies in the hands of business technologists. So there's a lot of upside to using these technologies to benefit an IT organization specifically and the enterprise at large.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I think about sort of the transformations. I heard a useful comparison about Gen AI impacts and really the same kind of thing. And is this similar to the creation of the electronic spreadsheet? And what did we do for tools and tool transformation? But there's a lot that organizations have at their disposal. They just need to be able to put it to work.
That's the plan. That's the goal.
Yeah. Well, hopefully this is encouragement. Carl, this has been great. I will point our listeners to your research that covers all of the topics we've been talking about and then some. But thank you for being on the podcast.
Hey, my pleasure, Eric. Anytime.
hopefully we've motivated some folks to be able to get going.
You bet.
But that is it for this episode of Next in Tech. Thanks to our audience for staying with us. And thanks to our production team, including Carolyn Wright, Sophie Carr, Caitlin Buckley on the marketing and events teams, and our agency partner, the 199. I hope you'll join us for our next episode, where we're going to be talking about enterprise security with an enterprise practitioner to look at some practical aspects of what that really means. I hope you'll join us then, because there is always something next in tech.